was a great event. So we are live, but I went, I think it was, I forgot, but it was the Central Women in Tech interview event. And that was very good. There is a student who made a blog post out of the points that were discussed. It is posted in the Seattle Center Women in Tech, and I encourage everyone to take a look at it because the CEO and the tech recruiter from the name of the company is Chef. They both spoke about the hiring process and gave a lot of great information. So I encourage you to check it out if you didn't. And today there is another event I should mention at 6:30. There is an Android event, how to code a retail app from scratch. And I really wanted to go, but I teach at 5 p.m. So I don't think I can go, but if anybody wants to go, I encourage you to go. Okay. There are a lot of events. We have more events coming up. On the 29th, there is the GitHub event, as you might know. I'll post an announcement again, and more and more and more. So, any other announcements while we're announcing?
We have an event on the 26th too. Guest speaker Mary Jane Kelly. She's a security consultant, and she's really smart. If anyone's considering going security, I recommend going because she basically just lays out like resources, what route, really practical. I mean, she's done it for a long time, and she also knows a lot about robotics. So if anyone's interested in that.
Can you just post the link in the discussion? I think it's posted on the Seattle Central ID program site, but if you remember, just post the link.
For sure.
Thanks. Yeah. Any other announcements?
Engineering mentor night tomorrow from 6 to 8 in the same lobby. And it's hosted by Women in Science and Engineering. And we basically get their volunteer engineers from different areas who are with the Puget Sound Engineering Council. And they basically just come and talk to people about what they do, and hopefully we'll bring like props and examples of their work. We're trying to get some computer engineers. I need to check on the updated list, but it's free. There's some new pizza and drinks.
Great. And again, if you guys feel like it, post either on Canvas, or if it's too much to post on different places, maybe post on the Seattle Center Web Design and Development site. I think that's the most students can be probably there, but for over 400. Okay, thanks for the announcements. Now back to Java. Let's see. So we have used classes already a lot, but all the classes we have used have been provided for us either from the Eclipse, because it creates a class structure for us for the default class, or we have used a lot of classes which come from Aragon. Java library, right? We've been using the classes that come with the Java library, and they allow us, as you can see, to do a lot. But what if we wanted to create our own class? So the way that the classes create a Java library process is if we wanted to create our own. And it turns out that it's very useful to create our own. So we're going to learn how to do that. And for your homework this week, you have a little less time. Your homework assignment will be to essentially and make it into an app that is using object-oriented classes. Okay. So I'll show you a diagram here. This is called a UML. Also, it's a UML is a universal modeling language. It's a standard tool that is used for diagramming classes. Before you even get to programming, it's a language agnostic. You can use UML to sort of figure out what your class is going to look like. So here, the way that the process is defined is that the name of the class is going to go up here, and then you have the fields, as you can see, and then the methods that is below. The convention for UML is that you have, if it says minus here, that is going to mean that this is defined as private. It says plus, it means it's going to be defined as public. And then you have the name of the field, and the return type is a little different. The return type is going to be after, as opposed to the way it's called in Java. So in this case, we have this is not the return type, but the type rather, and then in the method, you have the return type. So you have a string field code, which is private, description, and double. And actually, let me back up. And what are we doing here? The exercise we're going to do is we're going to work on custom defining a class for a product. So a product is something pretty generic, but it's also very ubiquitous. So there are products in a lot of different places you might work. You might be dealing with products. And so we're going to create a product class which you can use for some very basic characteristics of a product, such as, let's say, every product has more or less a code, product code, the description, and a price. And then once you learn how to do this here, you can extend this product ways, customize it, and so forth. And of course, as part of doing all this, we're going to learn how to create classes. And then the class fields and methods. The fields are going to be the variables that belong to that class. They don't belong to methods or any other part of the program. They belong to the class, and we refer to them as fields or as instance variables. And the class also is going to have methods. And so here are some examples of the methods. As I mentioned, if it's a plus, it means that's a public. It is common to have methods that access the fields, because the fields are private, so you can't directly set your fields, your code, for example, to be, a certain value. You have to actually go about it by invoking a method. So these are the methods that are going to be part of the product class, and it is common to use a set or get as part of the name to indicate that we're going to set a field, which means we're going to set it to a value. Let's say product code is XYZ, or get that information with a get, for example, get price. And get price will return a double.
Why does set code have an argument and get code has empty parens and then indicates a string of the case?
That's a great question. And so the reason that is because, so think about this. If you want to set the code to a certain value, you have to pass something in. And so with a set, you're going to pass a string. That string is going to go set the field variable. If you want to get some information, you don't need to pass anything. You just want to get the information, but you have to return it. So this string here after the columns, that indicates a return type. So we're returning something, but we're getting a string return value there.
Thank you.
So there is a lot more to UML, and maybe after this slide I can show you, a lot more than what you need to know, but maybe what I'll say is if you want to learn more about UML, feel free to go off and do so on your own. There is also a tool that you can plug in. There is a plugin for Eclipse that is free up to a point, and then you have to start paying. And I'll see if I can get this installed here. And so this tool allows you to create UML diagrams out of your classes, and it's very helpful. I'll make a note and try to get it installed for us and give you some more information. But for now, I think that's what you need to know about UML. It's a nice way to sort of describe classes at a high level without being concerned about the language details at this point, although you have to be concerned about the UML syntax. So we have a class here, product, and it has 3 fields, as we mentioned. And what can we do? Why do we even want to have a class? Well, we want a class because we want to create instances or objects out of this class. So once we have defined, we have taken the time to design our product class, we can start cranking out objects, right? So we can have many products out of the same product class. So that's the relationship. The relationship is that out of one class, which you can also think is a factory or a template, we can create multiple instances just generic definition of what the characteristics of this class would be. In the product is where, in the object is where we get specific. And now we have two different product instances. We have a product Java, which is the first object, or we have or we have a product MySQL, which is the second, and you can have many more. Okay, so that's the relationship here. This is all conceptual, but these are important concepts to know, so you can work with the actual code. So do you have any questions so far? All right, and now we know that when we add a class, we're going to get a little stub from Eclipse, which is going to look like that. So it just tells us you have to put everything in a class. And when we define our product class, this is not going to be the class with the main. This will be the class where we actually define what the class looks like. And usually we will call it from another class which has the main method in it. So I think what I'd like to do now is instead of looking through the slide, let's go ahead and start coding and create our own product custom class in Eclipse. It's a little dark for me. I don't know. It feels like the atmosphere feels a little sleepy, so I'm going to do a little more light. Wake up. Okay, so let's bring up Eclipse, which is, I guess, no longer here. So you know where to find it now, right? Oh, here it is. It's still here for me anyway, but otherwise it would be under the program files x86 if you don't have it. Okay. Is everyone cool with opening Eclipse? You know where it is? Great. Start anew, or I guess magnify. Okay, so this will be the product example. So product. And let's add a class. Okay, so this will be the product class. And as I need to add a we're not adding a more than one class in this project. Now we're starting to work with multiple classes. Class that has to define the template for our class. And so we're not creating anything, we're just defining. That's why it doesn't have a main.
So what we're writing right now is like an interaction with the user.
No, so I'm going to draw a little diagram of what we're going to do here. To show you. Okay. So so many images. So right now, so we have our project. That's our project space, right? We named it product. Project. And we have a package here. And right now, in here, we're adding a class product. Here we're going to define what our class looks like. This is where we're going to say, we're going to do some modeling. Well, nothing fancy, but this is where we're going to say, what does a product object class look like? Well, let's think about it. It has, like I said, product code, description, and price, something like that. Maybe if it's a music product, then maybe it has a CD version, and I don't know what else. And that's all we're doing here. We're defining our product. And then we're going to add another class, which will be, let's say, product main, or just main, or I guess I told you to use the app. So we can either name it main.java or product app.java. And this is going to be where the main method is. And in this class, we're going to be creating those instances where I show you we crank out top new objects. Here is where we do that. And we also interact with the user. And that's how those two relate. And you can also have, for example, limited to two classes. In our example, we're going to add an additional class, which will be product DB, which will be just, we don't actually have a database, but just a simple class where we define some products so we have something to work with. Also, we might want to have another class, which is called, let's say, validate.java. And this is where we put all our methods that are going to have to do with validating user interface or user input. So we put all these here, and then whenever we need to use them, eventually we need to create these classes. And it's going to come back to the main, but that's how it relates. So right now, we're here. Okay, so no main, and create all this. Okay, so now we're going to define some of the fields and methods I told you about, and also learn about some additional characteristics of what goes inside a class. First, we're going to define our fields. So other common fields. And you have to think about it. In fact, one of the exercises I'm going to give you is to create yourself an object for something that is, just think of something from the real world, and then you create a class from it. Say, an animal, or you have to think about what it is, and then what is a meaningful data that goes with it. So a private string code is one of the fields. Is going to have a code. It's going to have a description. It's going to have a double price. So that's what we say, well, these are some of the essential characteristics of information that go with a class. Mark?
Can you turn off the light that focuses on?
Yeah, thanks. Good better?
Yeah.
So in addition to the, so these are the ways that a class is created. And in addition to fields, there is something else I haven't talked about yet, which is the constructor of the class. And the constructor is going to always have the same name as the class. And it's nothing more than a special method. It's a method, but it's a special method. And does anyone remember when the constructor gets called? Cliff.
When you create the object.
When you create the object is when this special method, the constructor, is called, and that's what creates the object. So you don't have to have a constructor. Well,
Is it always public?
it's always public, and actually, I should say that even if you don't have a constructor here, Java is still going to create a default constructor for you. So you don't actually have to have it, but it's better to have it. And it turns out that you can have multiple constructors, because in some cases you might want to create a constructor that doesn't take in any values. And then sometimes you actually may want to set your field variables with some values. And I'll show you. In the default constructor, we can set our values to the code to be, let's say, the empty string. The description, also a string. Did I spell this correctly? Empty string. And the price to start with will be 0. And now when we create our products in the main later, the default values are going to be that the price will be 0 and so forth. But sometimes we want to be able to set those fields to different values, right? It doesn't make sense that they're always empty string and 0. And so one of the ways we can do this is by having a different version of the constructor method. And we say that we are going to override the construction method. And we have a second version which actually is going to take in parameters. And then we're going to use these parameters to set the values for our fields. Now, why aren't we just making our fields public instead of, worrying and bothering with all these other steps? Why do you think that is? And can we? Well, let's see. Well, yeah, we can. It's not going to give us a syntax error, but there is a good reason why we don't do it. Would anyone like to guess? Or
We can change the data somewhere else without ruining it.
right, you want to have a certain level of protection or encapsulation of your data. You don't want to be able to have everybody going in and changing the information, which is part of the state of the object directly. So you're just trying to be more indirect about it as a way to protect the data. Because the data of an object is important. Generally, you don't want to lose or somehow cause unintended changes to the data, which is part of the state of an object. So that's why you declare them as private, and then you can only access them indirectly. And one of the ways is, as I mentioned here, when you create the object, you can pass at this time data to it. So we can have here in the second constructor that I'm creating the string calls, the string description, and double, they have to match price. So if there is a custom constructor, there's the constructor that's going to get called. So in other words, if we have both of these constructors here, it's going to call it depends which one we call, but you can call, if you call this one, it's going to set the values through here rather than through the default constructor. And how does it do that? Well, in here we're going to use the this keyword, which means, this keyword means that we are referencing the current object that we're in. And so we're going to say this.code is equal to code. And this might be confusing, but what we're saying is, I want you to set the code that is part of this object, which is this variable, this field right here, to the code that comes in as an argument. And then we're going to do the same for description, and for price. And you don't have to match the arguments. I think it's better to have the same name because it just shows, for me, it shows easier how they're connected together. Okay, question?
The spot under the constructor where we have like code equals blank string, why are those necessary if we're still doing this one?
Which line are you on?
10 through 12.
Okay, because this is a different constructor. So if we are, I think we can maybe say this here too, it's really not necessary because we don't have anything else. So it's not a confusing method. There is only one code we're referring to, and this is that string up here. And that's why we're not using the this. Whereas here we have two variables with the same name and we have to have a way to remove the ambiguity. Yes?
Why do we need two constructors? Like, can't we just call the second one right away?
Yeah, well, we don't have to have two constructors. We can only have one. So if I remove one of these or comment it out, it's going to be okay. But we're going to learn that there is more than one way to do things when we work with classes. So I'm just showing you immediately what is available to you. As I mentioned before, if you don't have, even if you don't have any constructor here compiled, because it's going to, the VM is going to invoke the default constructor on its own, right? Yes.
So will there be any difference when it's better to use any of them?
It's not so much when it's better, it's more what makes sense for what you're doing. So sometimes it might make sense to set them through an argument, sometimes not. And actually, I'm about to show you yet another way to set them through methods. So we're going to learn all these ways, and then we'll play with them by calling them from the main. Khalifa, am I missing something important here? Anything else to add?
And just the technical term for multiple like methods with the same name as overloading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you say overriding? Overloading.
Overloading.
Yeah, so you're overloading it, and if you're overloading it, you're going to, what it means is that it's the same name, however, it has a different number or different type of parameters is going to be overloaded. Okay. All right, so right now I will say, bear with me because I don't think it's going to necessarily make sense before we create the objects. So keep that in mind. We have a little more work to do to define our class. And I think when we create the object, it's going to be the eureka moment at that time, hopefully. All right, so these are our fields of the fields and then the constructor. Maybe I should add a comment here. This is the constructor. And again, the constructor is nothing but it's a method. It's just a special method. And then still inside the class, so make sure to mind your curly braces. We're going to now add some methods which allow us to also set the fields, and also to get the fields, rather through the constructor, through the methods. So we're going to have a public, and generally the methods that we need to use from other classes, we're going to declare as public, okay? Sometimes you may have a method that you're only using within that class itself, then you might declare it private. But if you're planning to use it elsewhere, you need to declare it either public or sometimes I'll talk about protected as well. So public void set code. So this one, set code, is going to, could be used to set the code, the value of the code. And therefore, we need to pass an argument here, which will be, what do you think should be the argument we're passing if we're setting the codes? Okay, so string code. And then again, we're going to say this dot code is equal to words describing these methods that access the fields. They're called accessors methods or also getter and setter methods. So we are setting the code, and also we need to be able to get the code. If somebody, how do we do this? code is going to be string. And then this will be get code. And it is part of my, part of the design of the class to decide if the code should be a string or should be an int. Okay, it actually turns out that most commonly they use the strings, which is why we're declaring it a string. But when you're designing your class, you need to figure out what makes sense as far as data types. And by the way, they can also be other classes, so they can be anything. So we're saying public string, return string, get code. Are we passing it any parameters here? No, we're not, because we are returning it, but we're not setting it to that point. And we need to use the return keyword to return code. So I'd like you to add, maybe I'll do it on the screen, but try to independently do the same for the other. We have 3 fields, so each of these fields should have its own set and get method. So please add those as well. Question?
So the first method there where it's got the void, that just means it's not returning anything.
Correct. Yeah. So if it says void, this is the keyword to indicate that it's not returning anything. That's correct. So go ahead and do the same for the other 2, and I'll just copy and paste and make the changes because they'll be very similar. Comment? And if you haven't worked with object-oriented paradigm before, I think this might sound very strange right now. So I would say if that's the case, then just give it some time. I think actually all of you had some exposure in your first programming class that you took, but it's not something that is intuitive necessarily. So just stick with it and it will make more sense. Note that if you say the bunch of methods, that these are the object methods, so these are all available to you because this is an object. And in addition to that, you should be getting your custom defined fields as well, right? So this is available to you with the dot notation as well. Okay, are we okay so far? All right. So we can also have, in addition to the getter and setter methods, we can also have some other methods, of course. So we're going to add one more to demonstrate here. For example, if we wanted to get the price to display in a with a format, as we have been doing, we can add a method to do this as well. So let's add another method, and it's going to be a public. It's going to return a string, get price formatted. We want to use the field. I should mention that the fields are available now for the entire class to see. So you can use the fields from all the methods in the scope is such that they're visible. I didn't mention that, but that's important to know. So these are like global variables in a way that you can see inside all of your methods inside of the rest of the class. Okay, so the reason I'm saying that is because here we're going to format the price and it's going to be visible. Do you have any questions right now? Yes. Sorry.
Getting an error under get press.
Okay, right now, maybe it's because we haven't finished typing. So let's keep on typing, and I think it's going to go away. If not, I'll come and take a look. Michael?
If we want them completely visible, why are we starting them out private?
Well, we don't want them completely visible for anything else except for our class. So we want them to be...
Oh, so it's just within this class?
Yes. So when it's private, it's visible. They're private, but they're not inside the method. They're up in the class level, and therefore their visibility is that they're visible for the entire class. And so we can use them anywhere in the class, but because they're private, if we try calling it from the main, from some other class, that will not work. That was a good question. Okay. Any other questions?
So could you have a public code in the main?
A public code?
Like could you use the same variable but call it public, or would that?
Yeah.
But this only works in this class.
Yeah, this is only for this class. So you should just give it meaningful names for the context you're working with. All right, so let's go ahead and add our formatted class, a formatted string rather, method. We're going to use the classes from the Java library that we know. So number format currency is equal to number format dot get format get currency instance. Sorry. This is, did I make a typo here? Thanks. Okay. So get currency instance. And we need to import it. So double click. So the formatted price will equal to currency.format price. And as you can see, it's available here. It's not complaining. And we're going to return price formatted. So we're returning this formatted price. That's why we set our method to return a string, and then we'll be able to use it from the other method. Did your error go away?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's see here. I have an extra curly brace, it looks like. So this is a definition of a class, and that's the way you would be defining classes. Generally speaking, and again, to recap, no matter what the particular fields or methods are going to be, you will have the fields, most commonly designed as private or declared as private. You have a constructor. Depending on what makes sense for you, you will have a default, or you'll have the custom constructor where you can pass arguments. You have the getter and setter methods, and you might have a variety of custom methods as well. All right, and now our class should be ready to go in the other class and start create at least one instance. But the question first.
I don't know why.
Let's take a look. So this is a method And then you have like so if you have a method, you don't have a semicolon at the end because the brackets actually are considered the body. So that's part of the method itself. Okay, guys? So don't put a semicolon. I've seen this a few times. You never, if you have curly braces, you don't put a semicolon here. Okay? Because what is inside the curly braces is the body of the particular method, so you don't want to end the statement there. Does this make sense? All right. So that's our first class. Now let's go and add our main class. In the same package, we have added one class, and nothing prevents us now. I think for the first time, we're going to add a second class. So the same thing, add a class. We're going to name this class product app. And for the homework, we have asked you with Cliff to name your homeworks with assignments, right? Assignment 1, 2, and 3. So if you have multiple classes, then let's agree that you have your main is going to be assignment 2 app. And this way you know what it is, okay? So do we want the main here or not? For what I drew on the class, on the board there?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Why do you guys think no? I'm just curious. But the thing is that we have name contains app at the end, or if it's main like that, that means it has a main. So that's our convention here. Yes.
So you don't want us to name it main?
Well, you can. I mean, yeah, you can. In the homework or here?
Either one.
You can. If you want to name it main, that's fine. Okay. And so we have our main here, the main method. Okay, so we're going to display a welcome message here. So system out print line, welcome to product viewer app. And then we need to create a scanner object so we can interact with the user. So what our little app is going to do is going to be the following. We're going to ask the user to enter a product code. And based on the product code they enter, we're going to display some information from our class. That's what we're doing here. And we're not going to worry about invalid. Right now, we're not going to handle errors. I just focus on getting this working and creating some classes to work with, okay? So that's where we headed. So let's create, we need to have a while loop because we may want to ask them multiple times. So I'm going to have a string choice. And we'll start with being yes, a y. Lowercase probably. And now we're going to have a while loop where while choice dot equals ignore case, which is how we, if you might recall, check for equality with strings, and also with the equals ignore case allows us to ignore the case. So equals ignore case y, while the user is saying y here.
you lose a paren?
Yeah, I said just a second, so I'm still
Okay.
working through this for a moment. Okay. And yes, I did lose a friend. Thank you. That too. Okay, so now we are inside the while loop. And inside the while loop, we're going to get user input. So we are going to ask them, enter product code. And this is going to be a string, so we can just grab it to the next line. So to work with this example, along with the book, we need to add another class. Maybe we can just yeah, let's do this. So please save this class for now. And I would like us to add another class, which we're going to be calling. We're going to create a DB class where we're going to contain some information about our product so that we can get it from there to display, okay? And I'm going to be using it here in the product tab, so let's just save the product tab for now. And then we're going to go back here and add one more class. And this class is going to be called Product DB. And this is something like a product, sorry, so it's a class, not a, yeah, here we go, class. Product DB. It will not have a main. And the reason we need to create it now is because we want to get this information to display from the main. We'll be displaying it to the user, so we need to have that coming from somewhere. And in here, we're going to create a public static method, which is going to return an object. So it's going to return a product object, and it's going to be a get product. The same way earlier we were creating the get field and just the other methods for getting the fields of the object, we can actually also create a method to get the entire object. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get, where I was typing in the main, we're going to get the product code from the user. And then based on that, we're going to provide them some information about this product. So if they say Java, we're going to get this product code, and then we're going to code up here some information about the product Java and display it back to them. Are you with me so far, even though I switched the methods in the classes? Or questions? 1 second. I guess here is, go ahead.
What is the static here?
Oh, great question. So the static is going to allow us to call the product, sorry, this should be actually the get product method without creating a new instance of the product DB class. If you recall, we have been using some classes and methods where we just call the class name dot the method. The reason that's possible is because these methods are declared as static. So the static method belongs to a class versus to an object. And therefore we can call it without creating an instance of that class. Suzanne?
Yeah, why would you start with the class, making the class first and then the main? Wouldn't it make more sense to start with the main first?
Not to me, because you have to know, the way I would think about it is I have to know what I'm calling and what I'm using, and I don't know what is in my class unless I define my class first. And the other way to think about it is that we start from more abstract, the class definitions are more abstract, and then we get more specific when you create specific objects. So that's the other way that it, in my mind, it follows. Okay. Let's finish the product DB class. We'll take a quick break and then we'll finish this exercise. Okay. So let's go ahead and create inside the product DB. We're going to create an instance of the product class. So to do that, we say product is equal to new product, and I have 3 uses of the word product here. So what are they? Well, the capital P indicates that this is the name of the class. And then the smaller p indicates there's an instance of it. We're creating an object. And from now on, we're going to refer with a smaller p product to this, with this object. And the new keyword, I think that's is this the first time we're seeing the new keyword? No? So Marcus, can you remind us what it does?
When you're creating an object main, you can do it like that?
Yeah, this is the magic word that is going to create an object out of a class. When you say new, that's when you create an instance of an object from a class. So
you have to do this somewhere, whether it's on the main or in this class?
If you want to create a new object, you have to create this object somewhere. That's right. So you can do it, as you can see, since we have declared the class is public, we can do it anywhere inside our program, right? So if we had declared our class non-public, that would be a different issue. But the way this is going right now, we can create it public. And so once we create an instance of the product object, that means that we can now use the methods that come, the public methods that are a part of that object, which is what we're going to do next. Let me just plug in my laptop. So we have created an instance of the object, and now we're going to say product.setCode. And if you might recall, what is the set code? Who remembers what set code was?
Set a piece in the object to.
It was a method in the product object, right? It was a method in the project class, or now product rather object, and it's going to allow us to set the code for the code field, right? So we're going to set the code, and we're going to pass it the product code, which comes from here. And now the product code has been set to whatever we pass it through here. So if we pass it Java, it will be Java, and so forth. And now based on that, we're going to do a conditional statement where we're going to say product code if product code dot equals ignore case Java, then we are going to set the description sorry, I just have a little typo here. Then we're going to say product.set description to Java with Eclipse, Java programming with Eclipse. And also we can say set price. It's available here, as you can see. And we'll set the price to $57.50. Okay, so we actually have probably at least 5 more minutes work with this class. So I'd like you to take a 5-minute break and freshen your mind and come back, and then we'll finish working with the ProDB class and then finally call it from the main so you can see. I think you can't really see what's going to happen here until we call it from the main and create it. So take a quick break and then come back. What is this phone?
Every time I yawn, you yawn.
I don't drink coffee.
I'm drinking coffee for the both of us. I'm drinking coffee for both of us.
Oh, sounds good. I could try to stop yawning.
It's addicting, and then I'm tired, so I yawn.
Yeah,
I feel guilty afterwards.
The last class I didn't yawn at all. Now I'm just tired.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was much more awake in JavaScript.
I'm sorry?
I was much more awake in
Where
JavaScript.
are you? This 1 o'clock is stuff. I wish we could all have a cup of coffee right now. Yeah, the JavaScript is a little easier because it's more instant gratification. You don't have to do quite so much to get to actually saying something. So.
I think it's just, it's not that this isn't interesting. It's just like it's too much all at once. It's
Yeah,
4 hours.
it's a lot. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
For some of us, 2 more later, 3 hours later. Yeah, I think that's why people drink the rockets, or whatever that's called. Rocket drink.
Oh, yeah. The Red Bull and stuff like that.
I'm afraid to stop doing stuff.
I don't like that.
Can you try it?
I've tried different energy drinks. They taste terrible. I've never had an energy drink that actually tastes good. But they're terrible for you. It's really bad for your heart. But there are enough things that in my life that are bad for my heart.
All right. You guys ready to continue? Or?
Yeah.
Drink something or other.
TV's lecture working this year. What about it? TV's lecture. Oh, yeah, it was mostly lecture. And so it was lecture on survey.
All right, well,
Yeah.
I think it's been about 5 minutes.
Get this little frappuccino. Take more than one. I know
It's actually time in 5 minutes, so I think it's.
But then when it comes,
Yes, I'm already there for it.
That's
For a
all.
single
Wait,
bag, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'm sure you don't want to miss that.
I'm not.
It's gonna be a fun
Come on.
Quiet.
All right.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah, coffee. All right.
That was some nursing,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
Okay, guys, let's go ahead and finish writing our database class.
Exactly.
And do you want me to show the diagram again behind here? Are we clear how these are connecting? So the extension, we can talk with each other. The classes talk with each other is necessary. And then we're going to instantiate and do some work with the user from the main, which the main is also in yet another class. Okay, classes all the way down. All right. So we have the case. We are going to set a couple possible product codes, and then based on the product code, get this information for the description and the price. We have the Java, and next we're going to say else if, and you can copy this line here to save a little bit of time. Product code equals. So we'll do a couple more. We'll do a JSP, Java servlets, book. And if it's the JSP, we're going to set, again, I should have copied all of these lines here. We'll set the description to Java servlets and the price to, let's say, $58. And then we only have 3 products right now, so the third one is going to be else. And obviously we can have more than that. So again, I'll copy those lines to just modify. The last book is going to be MySQL. It's a good book, by the way. Works MySQL. And let's say it costs $60, 60.5. Oops. All right. So we are saying up here that we're returning a product, so we must return a product. Because our method returns a product, so we're going to say return product. And now we should be able to go in the main and call this method.
Sonny?
Yeah.
If we know we've just got the 3 things, but we anticipate we may be adding more in the future, could you continue to just use else ifs?
Are you trying to say you should use a switch?
Not have an ultimate else at the end?
Yeah, this is a very bare bones learning example.
Okay.
You definitely need to have else and then say, sorry, I don't recognize this code and handle this differently.
I guess what I'm asking is,
Yeah.
is there a required else?
Can you do without an else?
Can we do without else and just have if and else if?
No, I think you have to have else, but if you have else if, so it might be okay. Let me just see here. Let's see. It's a different issue. Let me just get my brackets here straight. Okay, one more. So you can have them mix and match as necessary. Okay, and that should work. I like to have else. Over here, else if. Generally, the else would be the case where you say, sorry, I don't know this code.
Right.
Okay, so I'm lining these up again. Let's see what happened here.
The last else missing a parentheses.
Yeah, I think this is missing a parent, so that's okay, and then an extra one here. No, that doesn't grade. Oh yeah, it does. Okay. Need one more print here, looks like. What is the problem here? All right, who is going to help me figure this problem so we can move on? No, you can definitely have else. That's something else here. The left side assignment must be a variable.
I don't think else is kind of constrained.
Yeah, I don't think else is yeah.
That's what it is.
It doesn't have to
It's
be.
it. It's it. It's not.
Oh, right.
Should we else it?
Sure, no argument on the else.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. Okay, so we can make this, there you go. And then we could have else. And then in the else we can say, we're going to set it to 0 or just do something else. For now, I'll just leave it like that. That's what it is. The else is just else, anything else, essentially, so we don't have anything, any argument, as Michael said. Okay, so this is good to go now. And we should be able to, let me just review here. So we created a class, a special class, ProductDB, which is like our very primitive form of a database. That's where we set the information for our class, for our product. In this class, we created an instance of the product object from the other class. And then we use the product code, which was passed to us. We're going to actually get it from the user. And based on the product code, we set the description and the price for 3 different product options, okay? And then we return this product out of the ProductDB method, product method. And now we can go in the app with a main. And now we got the product code. And now we can say product is equal to productdb dot get product of product code. So we can call the get product methods, as you can see, without creating a new instance of an object because we declare it as a static. So the get product method is static. Therefore, we can just call it directly on the class without having to create a new instance of this object. And also notice that we can use ProductDB and product interchangeably, and this has to do with polymorphism. And right now, don't worry about it too much right now. I'll come back to this point. But the main point for our exercise is that now we have called the get product code, and we can get the product code from here. Or rather, not get it, but we can set it from what the user entered, right? So the user entered Java. And then we take this product code and then pass it to the get product method, right? And now we can display the output, and the idea would be that we should be able to now get the code description and price for the correct product from our product class. To do this, we're going to have a display message, so a string message, and maybe add a note here, display output. And also add a note here above the product. This is where we get the product object. So the string message is going to be product, like we have done in the past. code plus, and now we can say product get code, and it's going to get the code from the class, the correct value. So we return this. Plus a new line. And then we're going to return the description. As you can see again, it shows up here. We get the description. And the price. Except that we actually have a method we can call here get formatted price. So let's call this, so that's product dot get price formatted, which we called it so that we get the user-friendly output. So we can call this. Okay. And then with system semicolon here. Message. But that's not all, because now we need to close our loop. So see if user wants to continue. Yes or no. And then with the choice which we defined outside of the loop is going to equal to sc.next line. So if they say Y, then we're going to go back up and start again. If they say N, then we're going to get out of the while loop, and then we're going to close our scanner object and say goodbye. All right. So let me see here. I don't see any syntax errors. Let me run this and see what will happen. Appears to be running anyway. So we have three possible choices right now. So if I say MySQL, sure enough, here is my information. And hopefully, once you run this example, it will help you figure out what comes from where. Please finish writing the code, make sure it runs, and then we can discuss. Now that we have a working example that does everything end to end, we can discuss if you have any questions. But first, let's make sure everybody is running.
I have any research. Yes. I don't know.
So let's see. We'll get to the computer. I don't know.
It says it's running that.
don't know what it is. It's hard to know exactly the same.
Yeah.
Maybe it is. Okay, yeah. Any questions?
Yeah. No.
There you go.
No, there's been so many times where I've like gone to something, started to ask them like, what's wrong here, and then has them explain how, yeah, that's what it is. Yep. So we're
Oh, wait, oh.
probably.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to.
Yeah, that warning is probably helpful. Like, oh, make it clear.
So put in a code. And
Right here.
there it is. Yep.
Sorry, that's why it's not in my database. Why not do the rest of it? With the else.
So what's the exception to it? But starting exception.
Any other questions? I'm gonna answer one there with Damien. I don't know what's.
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Yeah. So the reason is because if you close this game, you can't use it again. So
Right.
you go back to the copy and try to use it, and you just close it.
This is like the front screen, like our
Yeah, exactly. So you want to take this off so you can actually. You need to get credit basis. You need to get credit basis so it's not, they always hold around for a while. And then you get to close it. You have to close it after the series. Then,
So this is the get right string and the front key.
could you look at Damien's, he has the error, I couldn't easily figure out, so see the guy with the way in there. Okay, I was looking and looking, but I can't see, it says complaining about a string, which is what he's returning, so.
Because no matter what, it's. So, we don't need to put that. Seems strange.
I don't understand, there's something different, it seems like,
Was there some kind of configuration that I'm doing right now?
I got it, what I did different was I just used the dot notation instead of typing it myself. I said dot and then I pushed it from there.
And then we restored it there.
I actually was there. But it's exactly the same, maybe you had a typo error that I didn't see, but that works. You still have some other errors.
As you're just creating the instance.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah. So what was the issue with the format?
No, it's here for the going back and
Well, if you cover all the different settings of type, if you cover all the variable names, it's difficult.
Are you saying into the?
Because as long as you say yes, it's gonna display.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Oh, okay, it's not. So.
Are you raising your hand?
Yeah. So what is void?
So void is telling you that I'm not returning anything from this class. If you're not returning anything, it's void. So for the set description, it will be void because what you're doing is you're setting it to the class, you're not returning it out of the product.
We finished the blog.
I made a blog. I didn't do
It's a get. The get is going to get it on the field. So the get is usually will be the first type is set on.
Making sure
The set is also direction in, so you know.
why would you? Because like this makes sense to me because Well, okay, so we're getting this from individual. So that's.
Yeah, I use my, I've been using my website, so it's what, so I'm like, one just blog, might put some colors in
It
later.
just seems like a lot of like.
Oh, you actually know the site.
Yeah.
I just went there. I remember what I used to have.
Yeah, I already had one, you know, for, you know. That I use for,
Like, I don't get like 1 week.
I gotta work on just
Getting to
he has a sign
That's
for
the one. The rest of it.
Yeah.
Well, I said.
Yeah, I did. This one that took me about 4 hours because I had to remember HTML and I hadn't done it since, you know, last summer. You know, CSS, the whole 9 yards. But got it all nice and pretty. It even goes back to my home page. It's even valid.
Which is like, so this is used to simplicity.
Yeah.
That's why it's tremendous.
But I figured,
Any other questions? Because I have more examples to add, which will hopefully make it easier, but first.
like this changes, the color changes.
Yeah, that's the, I figured I'd do my video insert question stuff.
Yeah, you have to do those before you do this. Yeah.
It's not.
So it's true. My girlfriend wasn't too disappointed because in the morning I'm like, oh, did your camera, bring your camera over, we're gonna work on it. And then I'm like working, and it's like 8 o'clock. She's like, I guess we're not going out, huh? It's like, no, sorry. Took a bit longer than I thought it was. Yeah, it's cool. I feel a lot better than he's all the time because I know he's about to dump me. It's not even good. It's not even good.
I'm sure there's one. I'm sure it's actually, at least some of it is actually not.
Yeah, the funny thing is, he doesn't grade it.
Well, that's.
Yeah.
He's like.
Let's play with this class a little more. All right, so we'll add some more. Let's do some more experimentation that is using our object. So we're going to, let's see, how should I do this here? I'm trying to figure out the most efficient way to do this. Let's see.
We're gonna add the else.
Okay, so we're going to add another class that has a main, and we can do that too. So I think that's the best way to do it. What I would like you to do is we're going to experiment some more with the different aspects that we added to the product class. So hopefully they'll make sense. So go ahead and add a new class. And if you have some issues with the previous work, just maybe drop it for now and email me later to look at it, or Cliff, and let's work along. We're going to create a new class and name it Product Faster App. So that's the other app. So it's going to have a main, and we'll just do some different work with it, within it, with our product. So let's, maybe I should have started with this example first. So let's go ahead and create a new product object. So now you know how to do that. How do we do that? I'm sorry?
It doesn't let me create it.
What is it saying?
It's just the finish button.
Let's take a look.
It might be thinking.
So multiple classes can have
They should, I think it can only.
That's crazy. So this is not pulling from your product class. This is the object you're creating. And anytime you create an object from a class, you name that product right there.
Yeah, like the most special method.
No, that's referring to the data.
So who remembers how to create objects? You need to know how to do that because you'll be creating a lot of them.
Yeah, the
Okay.
location can be Frank.
So the name of our object is the class, what a class? What is the type of our, okay, product, exactly, product or P, you can give it any variable name you want. So product is equal to a new product. And so when we did that, we are calling it with the default constructor because we're not passing any arguments here to the product, okay? So this is calling it with the default constructor. And maybe we should make a note. Create a new product object with default. If it's necessary for you, if you don't think you remember, add a little note with the default constructor. And so now let's play around with it and let's print out what is, if we create an object with the default constructor, what is going to be the content of the fields of that object right now. So let's say string message is equal to, I wonder if we can just copy this. Well, I guess I'll just type it. So we have the code. And if I want to display, do I want to use the get or the set? We're going to get the code. And we also have a description. Okay. And we also have price. So what do we expect? So this is the default constructor. Let's go back and look at the product class, and I'll come back here. What do you expect our values to be for the code description and price if we're calling the default constructor? Empty 0 is what I would expect as well. And so if you run them, that's exactly what we get. So after, I'll give you a moment to finish typing this and run it, and then let's go and look at the product object. So the product class, to make sure that we're clear why are we getting, in this case, empty 0. And then we're going to figure out how to change those. I think here there was a question, why do we have to have a set and get? Well, if we want to make any change, we need to set those fields to different values. And we'll learn how to do this through the custom constructor, through the getter and setter methods, and then print them out, and we'll continue playing with it. And again, it's happening so that we are not really having lab time because we have so much to learn. So next time we meet, I'll give you lab time to work on some creating some classes and so forth. Okay, and we haven't even gotten to the lecture yet, right? So we have covered a lot of material, but it's all been a lot of typing today. But that's perhaps the crucial lecture of the quarter because you need to learn how to make custom classes in order to learn object-oriented programming. So we need to know this. Are we ready to continue? Should we take a look at the product to see why these are zeros, or are you comfortable with it? Take a look?
Yes.
All right, let's take a look. So where is this coming from? So everyone got the empty zero? Okay? Well, first of all, where do we look? Where do we even know how to look? Well, we have been creating a product object, so that is a clue for us that we should go look in which class? Product, right? Okay, and here we go. And we take a look here, and we see that when we created the default constructor, I should say here, we have set our default values to be empty, zero. So if I change this right now to JS, and I'm just, 20, and then I'll go back to my product tester and paste this, and sure enough, now I'm saying these values. So that's where they come from. These values come from the default. When we create an object with a new notation, new object from a class, by default, the default constructor is going to be called. And inside the default constructor, what we set the values here is what we get. So that's where this comes from. All right, now I'm going to, is there a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the constructor, so it's totally based on what arguments you're passing to it that identifies which constructor. So you're kind of, you could do like unlimited constructors, and then it'll just figure out based on the arguments.
As long as you have coded in your class here, you can have another constructor that only takes 2.
And it'll just know because you only sent 2. Because
you only sent 2 is going to know which one. That's exactly right. And so, in fact, we're going to test this in a moment here. Question?
So the defaults for each field there, 13 through 15 lines.
Yes.
Why are those necessary?
Well, because we want to define our variables with something instead of having them undefined. Otherwise, it would be even more unknown what is there. So we want to at least, we don't know yet what's going to be there, but it's better to initialize them to something than nothing at all. Okay, so I'm going back to the product tester. Now let's go ahead and use our setter methods to set those fields. So again, the fields can be set in more than one way, and now we're going to set them via the methods, the setter methods. So I'm going to say a comment here, set data in the product object. And now I can say product dot, and I'm setting it, so it's going to be set code, and I'll set the code to ABC. I'm trying to use different ones just so we can see the difference. Set the description to this is only a test, and product dot. Oh, hang on, I'm typing fast here. Here we go. Set price to 40.05, for example. And now I'm going to copy my message And you don't have to declare it again. In fact, you get an error. So, but I will essentially store a different information in my message now. And now I'm creating a message after I make those updates with the setter, right? And now let me print the message. And as you can see, after setting the fields with the setter methods, now I have the new information is available with those fields. And we're also using the getter methods because we're getting, that's how we get the field information, right? Question? Question, Roman? Susan?
No, I just want to say it's like I have an error.
Okay.
Can you scroll on this message?
All right, so the other thing we want to try is to use the custom constructor. So we have now used the default constructor, we have used the getter and the setter methods. And in addition to, or whenever it makes sense, we can also set our fields with our custom constructor as opposed to these other two ways, okay? So I will do this next, and it's going to be pretty simple. We need to just call the, as Mark was mentioning here, the product constructor with a proper number of parameters to indicate that we are now creating, using a custom constructor. To do this, we do have to have a new product created. So we're going to have, or not a new product, we can have the same product, but we need to call the constructor. So we can say product is equal to a new product. So that's where we call the constructor. But in this case, we're going to pass the three parameters that we have here. So they were the code, description, price. So let's say XYZ. This is custom constructor test. And we need the third parameter is a double, so a number. And now I will copy the message again and reuse it. And I expect to see the XYZ, which I do see. And this is how we use a custom constructor. So we passed the parameters here, and now our fields have changed to those values. So we can use either the getter or setter or the custom constructor. It just depends what you need to accomplish. Or maybe if I ask you to do something specific, then you can use that. I'm sorry? What? I'm sorry, can I?
These are all just examples of like if you like to pass it.
To the object. Yes, to set the fields. These are different examples how to set the fields, and also includes, this example includes how to get the field, because you're getting the field here with the get code.
Why do we have a random question? Why do we have the comment directly beneath the
Right here?
Yeah.
It's auto-generated, so you can, it's created by Eclipse for you, for your convenience. I think it will be okay. It's a comment, so shouldn't be a problem. Let's see. We can also create another product, so we don't have to only have one object. Like I mentioned, the reason we want to have a class template is because we want to create multiple. We can create multiple, so we can create another product here. And if I wanted to have a product 1, I could create it, and as you can see, the same syntax works. And then we'll need to I have called the new product to the default constructor. So what does that mean in terms of the fields right now? What would that be? They should be blank, blank, 0. In fact, without doing too much work, we should be able to call the product 1. So that's another instance of the object by just changing here. Well, it's going to be the same result, but as you can see, it's going to be using a different object. So that's what I'm trying to show you. So now maybe I should add a line here to say product 1. So now I have 2 objects. The first one is product and the other one is product 1. And I created product 1 with the default constructor, therefore it has the empty 0. And then I'm calling the same methods because they're available to any object created from this class here. And that is giving me the constructor and the getter and setter from the second class. So do you have any questions at this point? That's a lot of dense material, but it had to be covered. So questions?
So are ABC and XYZ their new objects?
No, they're just the values of the, so yeah, we need to exactly ask this kind of question. So ABC is the value of the code field of the product object. So it's not an object, it's a value. So we have the fields, and then we have the values of those fields, and then we have a class. Or rather, the other direction, we have a class. The class has fields and methods, and the fields have values. So ABC is a value.
And so like Java and those are values.
Yes.
So is there a way to change one of those values within that object? Like Java, if you want to change Java's price.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, so we can certainly do that. I'm sorry, I think we already have done it, but we can change it. When we set price here, so we create the product 1, and now we have seen that product 1 gives us blank price. And so here, what if we say product 1 dot set set price, and what do you want it to be?
$50.
Okay. And there it is.
Yeah, but how do you make it associated with the Java though? Do you just have to do that set all 3 again?
Oh, so yeah, because right now it's associated, it's the one object. So if you want to have one associated with Java, what you could do is you could have one product. You can have a Java product, MySQL product. You can have different instances of the object, and then each of these objects is going to be associated with its own data. So I think the way I would do it would be I would create a new Java product, and then have that product associated with the Java and $50. And then the second one, otherwise you're just changing the fields of the same one. Okay. So that was a good question. Anything else?
The assignment 3?
Yeah. So the assignment 3 was to create a class based on the previous assignment with the name, with a guessing game, right? So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to create a class. There is a game, I guess, guessing game. And then you need to reorganize and think what variables do you have? What variables are you using in the guessing game? What do we have to use? Guess number, which is an int. We have the random number, which is
Upper limit.
in the upper limit we take from the user though. And also we have the count, a value that you should use a counter. So if we have a guessing game, this could be our fields. Okay, so the variables are going to turn into the fields of the class, and then you're going to have the methods corresponding to the methods of the game itself. And the methods you had were to generate the random number, get the upper limit, and what else do you have? I guess you have a method where you're actually doing the comparison of the two. You can. Why don't you start working on that now a little bit? We have 15 minutes, and then I guess Cliff and I can start thinking about it. And I'll tell you this: it's going to take a little bit of thinking before you just start typing. Or it's not just a matter of just typing it out. You need to actually think a little bit about it.
So it's due on the 25th.
It's due on Monday because it's a shorter week. Yeah. But if it's a big problem, maybe I'll give you guys. Sorry. Here's what: if there is a lot of confusion, I will extend the turn-in time until the end of class on Monday, and that will give you a little more time during the lab portion to address any issue you have. So I think I'll just go ahead and do that.
I would just, for me, I think I just don't know how you want to display it. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, it should be displayed, the functionality should be exactly the same. So that's the thing. You're not doing anything new or different. It needs to function exactly the same way, but it's just organized in a class versus, so it's exactly the same.
okay.
No new functionality, nothing new, just reorganize it to be put in a class. All right?
So
Jeremiah?
should you basically program in like 3 different classes instead of 2 different methods, or do you?
No, because I would say you need to have one class which will contain the methods, because you can have multiple fields and multiple methods within the same class. So I personally don't see a need for 3 classes. I would have a guessing game class and then a main class where you create an instance of the guessing game, get the user input, and then you call it from there. I think I'll turn off our recording at this time.